there has been a spate of very disturbing videos crashing through the internet, all tied to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Normally in a war situation you expect to see soldiers and civilians getting maimed and killed at the hands of their enemy, sometimes horrifically. What you don't expect to see are soldiers getting filmed, as they kill themselves. So, what in the name of all that is good is going on? Before I continue, let me just say, if you don't know, this is a pro-Ukrainian channel, and whilst this action may also be happening on the Ukrainian side, currently the only visual evidence we have is of Russian soldiers killing themselves. So, I will be focusing on their situation and the reasons why I believe that this may be happening. As much I have a great deal of resentment towards the Russian side and their unfair treatment of the Ukrainian people, I will be keeping this video focused on the human. The poor soldier left to fight and die on his own in a trench full of his dead comrades. I know of the hatred, but stop for a second and think, this is a young man, a human, so overcome he kills himself. This shouldn't be happening. Once again, thank you for watching. I would welcome your comments. This is a topic that can do with discussion, so please get involved. I have personally viewed 3 videos, every one of them horrific. The first one showed a Russian soldier, who wounded by a drone, lies back, looks up into the sky, then slowly pulls a pin from a grenade and shoves it under his chin. The video footage shows the resultant explosion and the fact that his head is now mostly missing. There was another video very similar to this, the result was the same. Then the most memorable video for me was the one involving a Russian platoon leader who sees a drone, drops to his knees, and starts firing into the sky in an attempt to destroy it or at least move it away. He puts up a real fight, which shows me that he is not ready to die but intent on saving himself. The drone attacks nonetheless. After 2 close hits with dropped explosives, it's clear that the soldier has been hit in the leg. It appears broken and completely useless, but he only notices when he realizes that he cannot move. In clear discomfort, he lies down and removes his body armor. A few moments later, he pulls his gun to his chin and shoots himself. What drove a man, who a few minutes earlier was fighting for all he was worth, to give up and end it? The wound was bad, but in any Western army, it would have been a casevac and 2 weeks in hospital. In this instance, however, he killed himself. Why? I think to fully understand the situation we must recognize other videos not directly about suicides but closely related. Endless examples of Russian trenches with dead soldiers in them. Sometimes lots, others with not so many, but still clearly dead and left in the place they died. They have not been retrieved or treated with any respect. Often living soldiers are left to operate in and amongst the dead as they slowly decompose. Bodies are trampled and flattened by surviving troops moving along the trench line. The smell, the decay, overwhelming. What effect is this having on those living soldiers? It must be surely hollowing them out, turning them into wild animals only concerned with the moment right in front of them, tunnel vision to what happens next and only that. It should be remembered that even closing your eyes to this mess, your other senses will take over and the smell alone will remind you exactly where you are. For me, the most obvious is that each dead body is a clear example of what awaits the living. If you die or you are wounded, you will be left to suffer. Your side isn't coming for you. They do not care whether you live or die, and if you are wounded, they don't have the capacity or ability to help you. You will be left to rot, trampled on by the men you just sat with. Let's leave the Ukrainians' endless efforts to secure their wounded and where possible the bodies of their dead out it. I want to use the Americans as an example. They have a focus on the golden hour where casevacs are used to get the wounded troops off the battlefield and into hospital. There's a mantra of leave no man behind. Medics are trained, the dead are mostly always recovered and treated with the utmost respect and reverence. The families are treated incredibly well and kept informed, life insurances are paid out and the troops get their bonuses. Why? Morale. For a soldier to stay focused and motivated, they have to feel that their needs will be taken care of. They don't want to think that they will be decomposing on a field somewhere, their loved ones ignored and not respected. Worrying about this will breed resentment, fear, and eventually a sense of hopelessness. It's that sense of despair that causes someone to act so finally. Russia is clearly not focused on its logistics for this war. It has been widely reported that the troops in the field are lacking pretty much everything. At one stage being given tampons to use in makeshift medical kits as a form of wound packing. Then of course there was the story of Russian soldiers being forced to attack a strong point with handguns and entrenching tools. There have been multiple accounts of mobilized troops not being given real body armor or on occasion none at all and having to purchase their own. The poor logistical situation resulted in Putin firing the colonel general in charge of logistics, Mikhail Mizantsev, and frankly it hasn't gotten better, with the lack of ammunition supplies to Wagner being one of the main causes of the breakdown in inter-unit cohesion that resulted in a major Ukrainian breakthrough. All of these is keenly felt by the Russian soldier in the front line. When they are not fed, when medics don't appear to help, when medical supplies are non-existent. This plays on their mind, tormenting them, bracing them for the minor injury that will signal their doom. We have seen the videos of Russian soldiers complaining about a lack of everything, sometimes even food. They look disheveled, poorly cared for, lost. Another concern for your average soldier has been the lack of training. Due to poor planning and underestimating the Ukrainian resolve, replacements have been rushed to the front. There have been numerous videos of soldiers thrown into front assaults when their specialties are other areas like artillery. This has been exacerbated by the heavy casualties. Where are the experienced non-commissioned officers providing reassurance and support? Most of them have killed. It's the professional and experienced soldiers that advise, give on-the-job training and of course know the tricks of the trade to staying alive and focused on the mission. Apart from the indirect factors affecting Russian mental health and their desire to simply end their own suffering, you have the direct instructions to self-harm by commanders. The discovery made by Ukrainian soldiers of a memorandum to Russian soldiers telling them to commit suicide by grenade if captured was startling and so barbaric if true. I cannot think of the reason for this, as most POWs have been exchanged regularly during the start of this war. In the Ukrainian case, Russian soldiers have been well taken care of. In all fairness, Ukrainian soldiers have been returned alive, sometimes barely, but returned nonetheless. I can only assume it's the propaganda effect of seeing captured Russian soldiers over and over again in Ukrainian news feeds and the negative impact on people seeing that the great Russian war machine isn't always getting it right. But invoking fear in your troops to motivate better performance is a terrible way to lead, but frankly unsurprising when you consider that historically the well-being of their troops has been non-existent. They have been treated as cattle since time immemorial, and despite the advent of the internet and a certain degree of Western culture post-Glasnost, the Russian soldier is still shamefully expendable. I think the difference from, say, World War II, is that now the soldier knows it, they are educated, they have seen the histories and compared the performances of Western armies. This would also explain why so many Russian conscripts have fled instead of joining the war effort in Ukraine. The word is already out, and they shouldn't expect much in terms of surviving and overall treatment. Another point has been the Russian use of blocking troops. Those troops are ultra-loyal and put in place to ensure that the soldiers doing the attacking, or cannon fodder, follow through according to orders. If they don't, they are normally shot or threatened with all sorts of horrible punishments. This could explain why the soldiers in the videos appear alone, unable to retreat through fear. They feel it better to rather kill themselves than to attempt a retreat to safety and to be potentially mistreated by their own side. In his 1952 essay The Myth of Sisyphus, the French novelist and philosopher Albert Camus wrote of the predicament of modern man and described him as an absurd hero. Man is condemned, like Sisyphus in the ancient Greek myth, to a life of futility that is devoid of meaning. He must push a heavy stone uphill, only for it to roll back down again once it reaches the top. This labor continues, up and down, forever. Base this in the horrors of what is happening in Ukraine, you have to wonder why more men haven't chosen to end their suffering, or perhaps they have and there just isn't a drone hovering overhead. Either way, there is something very sad about these suicides, and unfortunately, they all dovetail rather nicely about what we know regarding this haphazard attack into Ukraine. I would hate to be a Russian soldier fighting a war I do not understand, in a land I do not know, against a people who understandably want me dead, for a leader who doesn't care about me. It's enough to make anyone suicidal. Thanks for watching, peace.